Good evening. Welcome to Thai PBS English News Service. Tonight you're with me, Rumtip Chonapalai, as Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra visits France and Germany in the hope of strengthening trade relations. Topic to be discussed are the GSP and opportunities for Thai food to be exported to the European Union. On top of the impact of the Eurozone debt crisis is having on Thai exports. Thai exporters are set to face yet another blow in 2014 as the EU's tariff privilege or GSP gets withdrawn. A free trade agreement between Thailand and the EU is what Thai businesses are seeking to help them weather the storm. Here's more from Kun Bandit Ket Bandit.
Under the European Union's new Generalized System of Preferences, or GSP, which is scheduled for January 1, 2014, taking effect the following year, Thai exporters will no longer qualify for this tariff privilege as the country's per capita income now exceeds the new conditions for inclusion. This is likely to put local exporters at a disadvantage as their counterparts, including Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia, retain the key benefits of reduced or zero rates of customs duties on exports to the EU. Thai export products likely to be most affected by the new GSP are frozen and processed shrimp, as their tariffs will triple. The disadvantages Thai exporters will face in the EU also means reduced bargaining power for Thai businesses in other foreign markets.
The
new GSP makes it more difficult to bargain with other markets like the United States and Japan. However, if GSP is not withdrawn, we will still have a fair competition in the EU market, and bargaining power with other trading partners will not be impacted as much.
In 1999, GSP privileges given to Thai shrimp imports were cut. This eventually resulted in a significant decline in the number of Thai exported shrimp to Europe, plummeting from 20 to 30,000 tons per year to a mere 5,000. Understandably, the imminent GSP withdrawal worries local shrimp exporters. The president of the Thai Shrimp Association forecast that the country's exports of shrimp products to the EU could plummet from 20 to 25% of total shrimp exports to just 5% if the GSP is cut. Their distress is reflected by an independent expert on trade who believes that food and fishery products will experience the greatest blow.
I sympathize with businesses that have low profit margins, like exporters of seafood products, canned food and shrimp. The new higher tariffs they have to pay will considerably hurt their bottom line. Worse, the fact that their competitors continue receiving tariff benefits only further disadvantages them.
Despite the challenges facing Thai exporters, Skon said that the EU's GSP withdrawal on upper middle income economies and higher was not unexpected and might not be as negative as speculated because GSP is in fact just a temporary help for underdeveloped countries in the global economy.
If the GSP is withdrawn, Thai exporters have to adapt and grow stronger. It's better to increase our own business potential than to solely depend on the EU, because even if our rights to the GSP were to stay intact, we will never know when the Union will cut it in the future. Some countries who offer GSP to us even threaten to withdraw the privilege if we do not comply with their instructions and do this and do that. I suggest eliminating the GSP so we can grow stronger.
The government, on the one hand, advised local exporters to turn crisis into opportunity, strengthen their competitiveness through cost reductions, increase productivity, and expand the investment in countries that still receive the GSP privileges. At the same time, the government will hasten to negotiate a free trade agreement, or FTA, with the European Union to mitigate the impact on Thai exporters arising from the new GSP system.
The government will offer whatever possible assistance it can. We have been lobbying the EU all along to postpone the GSP. Now that it's going to be cut, I believe that places more pressure on the signing of FTA with the EU, and hence increasing the likelihood of the latter bearing fruit.
Even though Thai exporters would be hindered and would lose out to their foreign counterparts under the new GSP system, this could be a blessing in disguise for under-competitive industries to upgrade themselves. Still, the government needs to be quick in extending assistance to local exporters who now have less than 2 years to adapt.
The nurses at Phetchabun Hospital are so understaffed that each nurse has to do twice as much work as professional guidelines mandate. They are so overwhelmed that healthcare quality has decreased and their own health is gradually declining as the stress placed upon them increases relentlessly.
Understaffed nurses at Phetchabun Hospital is not a new phenomenon. In fact, the number of nurses working in public health care has been decreasing all over the country because of the long hours, low wages, and the inability to obtain status as a government official, which would ensure social security for the nurses and their families. Still, the nurses at Phetchabun continue to take selfless care of their patients. Male nurse Phetchabun said, "Every time there is an emergency, working with the doctor to stabilize the patient is the most important priority. He is responsible for 15 to 20 new patients every day, in addition to his regular patients. He and his 70 colleagues work 16 hours a day throughout the month. They work through weekends, barely ever getting a day off, and when they do, those days are few and far between. When they receive an annual raise, if at all, the increase in their wages is only a few hundred baht." Phetchabun said that our own clock is ticking. The burden allows no time for friends and family, no time to look after our own health. However, Nurse Phetchabun and his colleagues choose to sacrifice their well-being in order to do the job they love in their hometown. This dedicated nurse and his contemporaries are 6 years into their careers and have found that the number of nurses being granted the status of government officials has stopped dead. It's a policy the government has held in place since the days when Thailand was in debt to the IMF, a policy intended to ensure the country would not overspend at a time of economic crisis. While the policy may be doing its job efficiently, it has prompted 3,000 nurses this year alone to quit public health care in favor of private hospitals and hospitals abroad, jobs which promise higher salaries and the opportunity to advance their careers. This issue is currently being addressed at cabinet level.
Although the ASEAN Economic Community or AEC may bring further prosperity to the region, 10 member countries differ from the rest of the grouping in terms of economic development. In this special report, Inside ASEAN, we look at the disparity between the more developed ASEAN members like Singapore and emerging economies like Myanmar, which are attracting numbers of investor interest. After major political transition and unprecedented opening up of the economy to foreign participation, Myanmar has become one of the most interesting potential investment opportunities in ASEAN. Irving Sia, a Singaporean economist from DBS Bank, pointed out that although Myanmar has the advantages of vast and mostly untapped natural resources and a strategic location, its government must get the initial economic reforms on track.
Myanmar, for example, has recently started to open up to foreign investment. It is an up-and-coming emerging market. However, the potentials, whether the market will be able to meet its full potential, really much depends on government policy, depends on the faith of investors, depends on their economic policy going forward.
Myanmar is one of the CLMV group of countries joining ASEAN, which were not formative members. This group has been experiencing relatively slow economic development. According to the recent IMD's World Competitiveness Rankings, CLMV countries are way behind, with Singapore ranking the 4th, following only Hong Kong, USA and Switzerland, while Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia and the Philippines all appear in the top 50. This highlights the disparity among ASEAN members. We have now the disparities of the differences within ASEAN itself. How do we bridge that gap?
Everyone has got their own system, right? So to throw away one and then come up with another, I think that's also the kind of a challenges, right? But now that our leaders have actually made it very clear the journey towards 2015, the one single market and one single production. I think that sets up basically for people to start thinking that it's going to happen, and it's better for us to get there faster.
The regional integration represented by the AEC aims to aid trade negotiations and improve competitiveness. However, whether ASEAN can move forward strongly as one or not remains to be seen. The business sector in Singapore is generally positive about the prospect of ASEAN as one single economic community, especially given the opening up of Myanmar, which will provide additional levels of the regional connectivity. However, significant intra-ASEAN cooperation is a necessity to strengthen economic growth and to bridge gap between countries in different levels of development. The DBS economists also emphasized that, apart from the group's economic differences, political stability and people's freedom of speech are two more issues waiting to be effectively addressed, a process that appears to be taking quite some time.
Because without tackling the political problem, it is very difficult to achieve long-term economic sustainability and long-term prosperity. So, and Thailand is just one example. There are other countries with similar problems as well. So I think there are indeed many layers of hurdles that ASEAN countries need to overcome. It will take time.
The Vice Chairman of the Singapore Business Federation pointed out that every ASEAN country will benefit from integration as a single market. Singapore is ready to support other members to reduce obstacles to economic growth.
How ASEAN businesses itself can collaborate so that we can be stronger together. We should look at more made in ASEAN product, look at more ASEAN branding, look at more ASEAN brotherhood and cooperation, right? And look at more intra-ASEAN trade, right? Also in the area of cooperation in tourism.
Singapore and Brunei's per capita GDP reflects the greatest economic growth in ASEAN, in stark contrast to the CLMV countries. However, the region as a whole, ASEAN GDP per capita was approximately $3,000, similar to that of China, the world's second largest economy. No matter who gains or who loses, this integration of 10 countries is challenging ASEAN leaders to drive their nations towards the ASEAN Economic Community in 2015. While the odds may be against Thailand's Olympic boxers this year, but that's not to say the gold medal can't be won. In 1996, featherweight boxer Somrat Kamsing won the gold medal for Thailand at the Atlanta Summer Olympics. In 2000, at the Sydney Summer Olympics, this honor was also won by flyweight boxer Vichan Ponlit. Both are truly Olympic heroes.
Somrat Kamsing was born in 1973. It seems like boxing was in his blood. His brother Somrat Kamsing also competed at the highest level of amateur boxing. When he won the gold medal in 1996, he was the first Thai athlete to do so in 48 years. As the Thai national anthem played for his victory, he publicly wept tears of joy. He was honoured when he returned home. Though he has not won any more gold medals, he did star in a few films, most notably Kurt Ma Lui, and as a guest actor in Fearless, starring Jet Li. Vichan Ponlit began his Olympic career as the boxing underdog. With only 2 years of preparation for the Games under his belt, Vichan Ponlit had less training and experience than most of his opponents. But he managed to flatten them all with his strategy and cunning moves, earning him the nickname Ikkyusan, after the Japanese cartoon monk who was known for his wisdom and problem-solving abilities. Finally, his clever way of gradually overwhelming his opponent, combined with his quick and accurate punches, won him the gold medal after he defeated Kazakhstan's silver medalist Bulat Jumadilov, 1912. Victorious, Ponlit draped the Thai flag on his shoulders and held a framed picture of His Majesty King Bhumibol as the crowd cheered and sang the Thai national anthem. When he came back to Thailand, he was given a hero's welcome. He was paraded through the streets of Bangkok in front of 49 elephants, was given a new home, received over 20 million baht, and received a job promotion as a police officer in the Sukhothai province. Hugh Adams, Thai PBS.
Thank you, Kun Hugh. And that wraps up tonight's edition of Thai PBS English News Service. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rungtip Chonapalai. Sawadee ka.